one of Guruji's students once said to him, if you're afraid to teach me Shirsasana, you take the first train you came on and go back. Now, a statement like that from a student to a guru might raise eyebrows. And in fact, that statement was made by an 84-year-old woman to Guruji. She had the courage at age 84 to learn headstand. And she wanted a teacher as courageous as her to undertake the task of teaching her. Now, that 84-year-old woman was no other than the Queen Elizabeth of Belgium. And Guruji was 40 years old at the time and undertook the task of meeting with the Queen Mother and teaching her Shirsasana, to stand on her head, which he did. And there's a photo of the Queen Mother of Belgium doing Shirsasana. Why I'm telling you this story is because it reflects the courage of the Queen, of the student. And it's the same courage that all students need to step into a yoga studio and embark on this practice of yoga. Now, imagine you are also sick, or you have something that is making it more difficult. How much courage you would have to then come into a yoga class. And these three men are examples of students who have the courage to come and learn yoga despite obstacles. And so I'd like to begin by asking each of you to perhaps introduce yourselves and tell us what is it that makes it difficult to come to a regular class, or what has been the challenge that yoga has been looking to address or help you with. Well, you can just open up.
Okay.
I think one.
Hi everybody, my name is Espineli, and I'm a person who is suffered from a very rare genetic disease, which is called SCA3, and which is to the sense of I'm a lack of the sense of balance, and so I can't actually walk properly, and also lack of the control of my small muscles, so that leads to my speech impairment. And I found that yoga actually helps me, and especially talking about this specific needs task. Actually, it taught me a lot about things which I've never think about before, because I'm actually not a very sporty person before, but after I got this disease, I found that I got to move, I got to do exercise, and I'm lucky that my wife and I actually discovered this specific needs class, which enables us to learn yoga here in the center. And so I actually attend the yoga class every Wednesday and Saturday. So it's twice a week.
Thank you, David.
Thanks.
My name is Espineli, and my primary problem is I suffer from osteoarthritis. So this is a lot of people who get osteoarthritis. So I started to feel pain in my knees. I decided one day after living with it for a while I was gonna try to figure out exactly what the problem is. So I went to visit three orthopedic surgeons that took different opinions. I started a program with an acupuncturist, two different physiotherapists, and an osteopath. So this is the path that I went on. Turns out, after getting an MRI, talking to a very reputable orthopedic surgeon in Hong Kong that I have, he said, well, we got stage 4 osteoarthritis. And so the next phase would have been to get a knee replacement. So I was ready for a knee replacement, and I thought that the doctor was a little bit aggressive, right? So knee replacements only last 20 years. You have to get it replaced. So I will be a little bit old and probably not ready for another knee replacement, which I'm still alive. So I found out from the MRI that at stage 4, I have a little bit of wear and tear on the medial side of my left knee, and that I felt that the real problem was a muscular skeletal problem, and that I needed to look at the different yoga schools, and yoga was going to help me solve the muscular skeletal problem. And so a friend of ours was joining the Iyengar yoga program. And I said, you know what, Iyengar yoga is the school for me. Basically, because after studying the various schools, Iyengar yoga uses props that allows individuals to benefit from yoga before they can actually get into the proper position. And it was more precise, and I needed to have precise postures to get my joints aligned. And so that's how I ended up with Iyengar yoga. I didn't even know about these techniques. I started out in a regular yoga class, and some of the students said, well, you should try the specific needs class. And so I was doing a regular class and a specific needs class. And then I think about a month ago, I started doing 2 specific needs classes. And the improvement is tremendous, actually.
I think both the case of David and Ray, they started with 1 class a week. And when this is my reading, when they started to feel the benefits, they started to come twice a week.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Sean. I have 2 experiences, but actually, I started with George and Iyengar yoga, I think about 8 or 10 years ago, and I became quite a normal student. I was able to do headstands, to go upside down, do pretty normal classes. And then just before COVID, I was experiencing terrible problems with my neck, and I used to travel a lot, so I put it down to flying and different time zones. I went to the doctor, and he did an MRI, and the doctor told me that I had a worn valve, something in my neck, and he described it as the jelly in the piece of the neck kind of gone. And he said the only solution is to fly to America and have a very dangerous operation, which costs $100,000 US, and if you go, you'll be there for 3 months. And I was very upset. First of all, I didn't imagine I was going to have something like this. So of course I came to see George, and he said, bring the MRI, and I did. He said, don't worry about it. He said, it's aging. He said, but we can fix it, And I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow. And sure enough, I was still able to come to a normal class in those days. And in the normal class, George would adapt the exercises for me, and the neck problem went away. So then I had an eye operation, which we won't talk about. But just over a year ago, I was in hospital. I had a very rare blood virus, and it caused several complications. I was in hospital for 80 days. The doctors told me I had 2 days to live at one point. And then luckily we found the cure, medication, I had chemotherapy. And when I actually was able to come out of hospital, I was paralyzed. So I'd been laying down for 80 days. So I was in a wheelchair, I couldn't really move. And I spoke to many specialists, doctors, all sorts of different people, and nobody could really tell me, you know, how I could get well. So again, I spoke to George, and I was able to start learning to walk again using a stick. And George said, "Come along, up to the special needs." He said, "And we'll take care of you." And I was a little bit scared because I couldn't stand up, I couldn't sit down, couldn't get up off the floor. I literally could just about, you know, stand with a stick. So I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to do anything. But anyway, sure enough, I came along. And, you know, for those of you that haven't seen, it's an amazing class. Not only George, but he has like 8 or 10 other teachers here. And the attention to you is incredible. And I think the greatest thing is that when I was sick this time around, I disengaged from my body and my body was not aligned. And through the work that we did, the poses, the teachers, the help, the most important thing is I felt safe. And I think that's when you're very sick, you feel very vulnerable, worried, fear, nervous, all of those words. And to go to a place where you feel safe, it's very safe for them. And I think people underestimate, you know, just what George has created here with that. And sure enough, you know, a year down the road, I can now walk fairly normally, stand up, still have some issues. I still have a lot of numbness in my feet, but we do special exercises to help. I haven't yet quite made it to the second class, only because of the timing, but I'd love to do more than 1 class a week. And I would really urge anyone that knows anyone that's sick to tell them to try this. It's quite hard because if you're feeling you can't do something, it's quite hard to imagine you go somewhere where they're going to push you to do something. But I really would recommend that you know, to tell people about such things.
Sean's illness was very rare. I think in Hong Kong, was it the first ever or second?
I think the first case, they're actually writing a study about me now, because I shouldn't be alive, actually. I shouldn't get I think one thing I just want to point is my never matter. I didn't believe I was going to die, even though everybody else did. But I needed to find some safety to help me, and yoga did. And George did. He gave me the confidence, particularly as he done my neck, that I believe that we could heal, you know. But it was not easy to keep that mindset.
One of the misnomers of how yoga helps when you're ill or you have an ailment is that it's the pose, that pose will help this situation. There are poses that are helpful, but that's not the remedy. It's not that this pose will fix this situation. It's that all the poses will create an environment in the body of courage, of hope, of seeing that the body has the ability to do more than what the mind is telling you. And that's where the healing takes place. Pain is greatly diminished the more you move safely that part of the body that's feeling the pain. Because as you're moving that painful body part, you're retraining the brain to understand that it's safe. It's very much the latest in pain research that any part of the body will heal within 6 weeks. But when pain persists, it's really a problem of the nervous system. It's not a problem here. It's a problem of the signals. Now, do you have any questions you'd like to ask the panel? I have a couple of questions, but perhaps something has come to your mind that you'd like to ask any of the students or all of the students. We can ask them a question and they can each answer. I'm interested in, you may have come for a specific reason, the genetic disorder, the need to recover your health, but have there been some surprising benefits, something you didn't expect?
Yeah, I found that it's quite surprisingly that for those asana actually increase my focus about how to control the muscle or how to breathe with that, and also the facial expression management, which is very important, I think, to make the pose correct. I think it's important.
In Pune, many of us try to aspire to do the poses that Guruji did. And though some of us may get some of these seemingly challenging poses, what Mr. Iyengar's son Prashanti reminds us, yes, you're doing the pose with 1,000 facial expressions. But Guruji did 1,000 different poses, all with one facial expression of calmness and being. So it's not just doing the pose, it's being able to have that beatitude in any of these poses.
Right.
Yes, I think I have the facial expression issues. I was trying to go through these photos. I think that there are a number of things that were interesting. So as I said, I started with thinking, okay, the problem is neuromuscular. What was the problem is skeletal muscular. But I soon found out that neuromuscular elements of the issue were far more important. But basically, my muscles weren't firing properly. And part of that is because of pain. Inflammation causes your brain to trigger other muscle groups to compensate. So because your brain doesn't want to feel that pain, it doesn't fire the appropriate muscles. And so you need to get those muscles to fire in order to be able to solve your problem. And it took a year of doing this, of yoga, to finally get my problem muscles to fire. And to increase my stride length, to be able to bend. Imagine going into a yoga practice and you're in stage 4 knee arthritis. You're not bending your knee. Right? It was very. I mean, my friends all thought it was crazy, but you can't bend your knee. Why are you? How can you possibly be doing yoga? But I think one of the epiphanies was George saw my difficulty. He gave me the quarter block, and I was able to bend my knee. I go, I'm not able to bend my knee, right? It was quite an epiphany. And I realized, well, okay, it's a muscular structural thing. The pressure is being distributed differently. That's why the knee is able to bend. So that was interesting. This mind kind of about that question, how important it was one thing that really kind of affected me. The second is a more holistic approach. That it's everything is connected, right? So because of my knee, I couldn't bend. I had back pain. I couldn't get off the floor. It was all really connected because the right muscles were not firing. I mean, the right muscles weren't firing properly, and it was exacerbating the problem. So it was a cascade. And unless I was able to break out of that cascade, I couldn't solve my problem. So there were a lot of discoveries, I think, that I found.
Great. I have 3 comments. Actually, 3 comments to make. First thing is that most of my issues were with my legs, but there might be a week where I had really bad shoulder pain. And, George always somehow manages to help me with the pain I had that week without me even telling him. I don't know how he knows, but, sometimes they say we're doing shoulders, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God, my shoulder's really bad. So I don't know, it's his intuition, I think. You just know what people need, and I think that's amazing. Second comment is, most places that I've been in Hong Kong to have some kind of health work done, I always feel it's about money, and I always feel that they don't really care about helping you a lot. I don't feel that here. All the teachers come, and I'm sure they do it with their own love. And they're so dedicated, they really want to help you. And I think that's amazing what George's created here, that feeling of love and care. I don't feel that anywhere else I go, including if I have physio or things like that. So I think that's very important. And the third thing, in the year that I've been coming, every single student that comes, I've seen an improvement. You know, people with strokes. I mean, even their faces go back to being normal again, and I think it's amazing. I don't see that with people that I know that are sick that don't come to this class, and I think it's incredible. And I really feel as a community that we should try to help more people to know that if they come here, it's really they can really have an amazing benefit, as our street have said.
It really is a two-way question.
How much of like yoga and complementing like your food or your, like how do you balance it? Or it's feel like yoga is and everything and you didn't have to. Because I'm always curious, like I have a mother with diabetes, I have a father with heart attack, and I tried just with yoga and I'm like, they won't give up their medicines.
Well, I took a holistic approach, and the approach I took was this: in order to restructure, in order to solve my problem, I had to solve the inflammation problem. So the inflammation problem had to be solved first, or else my brain is constantly going to try to avoid that. So I started out with ice, heat and ice on the knees and the massage gun. So that was the first step. And then my orthopedic surgeon recommended Coxall. It's a very strong anti-inflammatory. The problem with that is that you can only take it for 8 days, and then it starts destroying your kidneys and liver. So that 8 days, and then you gotta get off of it. So that was not sustainable. I found an interesting supplement. Now, a friend of mine turned me on to this, and this supplement has a very interesting story. If you try to find this supplement on Hong Kong TV Mall, it's a veterinary medicine for dogs and horses. So if you look it up, you're not gonna find the one for humans, right? Well, it turns out this company started out as a veterinary medicine for dogs and horses. And people that own dogs, they go to the veterinarian, the dog's got arthritic problems. They give it to the dog, and suddenly the dog's walking around. Well, the owner also has arthritic problems. So they started taking this medicine, this supplement. And then a couple of people called the company and said, you should make this for people. Because we're taking it and the dog's walking around and we're walking around, right? And so the company, this Australian company, they started making a variant for human beings. And I started taking it, and it basically is a low-grade anti-inflammatory. It's not going to have the impact it's going to have with coaxin, which is an NSAID. I mean, it's a strong NSAID. But you've got this low-grade element, and it helps to bring inflammation down. The final thing that I discovered, which is yoga related, is that the isometric standing poses have an analgesic effect. It suppresses pain. I didn't realize that. I started reading this stuff from some sports medicine journals from the University of California, Davis, and they study tendons. And it turns out that this type of isometric exercise not only reduces pain, but strengthens your tendons. So the combination of all of this brought down the inflammation and then allowed my brain to kind of rewire it. So that's
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say, I think the holistic approach is the right word. You can't come to one class for 1.5 hours a week and think that that's gonna cure you, right? But once you've got the confidence that that's helping you, then you can do some things alongside that. So for example, I do acupuncture every week. I do red light therapy twice a day. I have a magnetic mat that I lay on, which helps my blood flow, which I do twice a day. I have massage. So all those things are complementing the yoga. So I think it's quite important to do more than one thing, because otherwise you might find the progress is a little bit slow.
But you've got a patient.
Yeah.
Yeah. It took a year of patiently going through the process, and you go through ups and downs. And it's painful. I mean, it's not, I don't want to say it's painful as in a sharp pain, but it is challenging. It's outside your comfort zone. And so you've got to have that patience to do this.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, when you've been very, very sick, the progress is quite slow. So you actually don't see it yourself. The only way that I have been able to really see the progress is when I travel and being able to get on an aeroplane and being able to go through the airport and then walking further and things like that. So I think you do have to be very patient with yourself and not be too hard on yourself to see immediate, change.
I'd like to wrap up by thanking the gentleman for, even sharing is an act of courage to share their stories. I'd like to thank the teachers, all of the students here mentioned the teachers that come and volunteer to help in the specific needs class. So my heartfelt gratitude to the teachers for coming to make it possible that we can run this class. Without the assistance, we could not. There's a Sanskrit shloka, it says, Karoka Karam Idam Sharidam. This body is for the benefit of the others. So the wisdom is that we exist to help others. We are in this body to help each other. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank people that have contributed to our scholarship fund, Someone in Need. Over the last year, we've been able to offer scholarships to a soldier who has fought in war and has PTSD, divorcee who is financially struggling, a widow, 2 widows who tragically lost their husbands, and students who are medically unable to work and therefore financially challenged. I thank once again all the teachers for teaching here and all the students for being part of the community. Without you, we wouldn't have anyone to teach, so thank you. And I'd like to finish the story of the Queen Mother of Belgium. So 8 years after BKS Iyengar taught headstand to the Queen Mother, he received a telephone call from the Queen Mother, then 92 years old. She had just suffered a stroke. She requested his presence. He flew to her immediately. Under his instruction, she was able to regain a respectable amount of movement. She could again hold and use a fork. He received the second of the 2 great gifts she gave to me, as he would later put it, when it was time for him to depart. The Queen Mother asked him to come close. She leaned forward and said, "Kiss me on the cheek," which he did as a tear came down her face. And soon after that, she passed away. So thank you once again for being here.